Hello, you find me sitting in a car park at an airport. I have some news for you. We have another live event for the podcast. It's going to be July the 25th at the Clapham Grand, my old stomping ground from 20 years ago when I was young. The Clapham Grand meant something different to me then. But this time it's a theatre with a large audience. A bit ambitious this for us. The other ones we've done have been small and they've sold out quickly. This is a bit bigger. Doors open 6:15. Tickets will be released as of today, and fill your boots. It's not going to be recorded, this one, and its working title is After the Watershed. So anything goes, really. You never know, we might find a special guest to come along as well. But at the moment, it's the four of us. It's a live show, lots of fun to be had, maybe a couple of beverages, and enjoy some stinky car chat. Sign up or be square. Hello and welcome to the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his slightly impish, poorly behaved friends.
Yeah.
It is like herding cats. It's just getting it started has been difficult. There's been insubordination in the ranks, there's been finger pointing and other things besides. Okay, so this could be rowdy. Well, it can't be any rowdier than last week, can it? Last time when Bob was handing out cocks. Who'd ever heard that before? Anyhow, it's episode 38. We don't have John McGuinness, sadly, but he will be back by popular demand soon. Don't worry. First on the agenda this week, an easy one for the learned friends. What did we do in cars this week? Let's start with Chris Cooper.
I did about 1,200 miles in cars this weekend-ish sort of thing.
That's known as 3 times a Manish year.
It's a three times a Manish, yeah.
It's Manish Cube.
It's probably Manish Cube. That's something I'd rather not conjure with as a vision in my mind. If that's all right, Manish. I'll give you a little bit of a diary entry. So on Friday, I drove to Leeds and back in the same day to watch a rugby league game, which is brilliant. I had really good fun. It was Leeds Rhinos versus Hull FC, one of the two Hull rugby teams. And it was brilliant. It really was good fun. I'll tell you what I enjoyed about it as a car. I'm going to have a rant in a minute, but there was something I enjoyed about it. It was a long drive up, sort of the spine of England-Leicestershire, from the south to the Ecky Thump Ebygum North. I've just made many more friends in the north with that analogy, an illusion.
I've lost one or two in the south.
And the traffic was quite bad. I'm going to come to the rant in just a moment. Traffic was quite bad and some of the infrastructure was bad. So I had to sort of shuttlecock. I've never said that out loud before. I had to bounce and shuttlecock between M1 and A1. So it took about 5.5 hours to get there. So you can imagine how patient I was and how happy and smiley of demeanour. I had a lovely evening with some lovely people in Leeds. Thank you very much to Leeds Building Society for inviting me. It was a really, really lovely time.
Other building societies are available.
Other building societies are available.
Without rugby teams.
Exactly.
They are the shirt sponsor. In fact, this is the 20th year of their shirt sponsorship. I think it's one of the longest lasting shirt sponsorship arrangements in British sport. So it was very good. I've got a rant, though, about it. I've got a happy thing to say in a moment, but the rant I need to share with you. What has happened to the state of British motorways and trunk roads? They are really, really shit. There's a piece of road when you go across from the M1 to the A1. It's that trunk road that was flooded for most of the winter, going past Bedford, A421, I think it was. Somebody will correct me. When you get to the eastern end of that, where it joins the A1, there's roadworks going on. They've been going on since September, at very least, probably a lot longer than that. Honestly, I couldn't see any difference to where the cones were, what the work was, how much work had been done. And there's one of those little signs one of those defensive signs that we see a lot these days, which was, even though you can't see us, we are working out of sight. Bollocks.
Agreed.
And worse, they've got a new one now, which is our core working hours are 9 to 5. That's not a working day. That's like half a working day.
It's a Dolly Parton song. It's not a message.
So the result of that is everything takes longer. It's more expensive. It's more disruptive. And of course, on the way back, because I left Leeds, I had to drive back on the same evening because I'd be back down in the south for Saturday. So I thought it'll be fine. Motorways will be clear. Nice drive, very relaxing. Hell no. The M1 was shut more than it was open, and the last bit, it was shut entirely from Milton Keynes to Luton. Any attempt at diversionary signs kind of petered out within a few hundred meters.
Did you go up and back in a day?
I did, yeah.
What was the total hourage in the car?
It was about between 8.5 and 9 hours because of the shambles going up there and the shambles coming back.
And it should be
what is the
5.
length of a rugby league match? I just wondered that.
Sorry, one at a time.
How long does a rugby league match go on?
It's 2 halves of 40 minutes. Good thing about rugby league is when there's an incident, they stop the clock. Anyway, back to the infrastructure and the motorway. A lot of closures on the way back down. Again, no real sense of what was going on. No, you couldn't see thousands of machines rapidly fixing the country before dawn. And then between Luton and Milton Keynes and Luton, it was shut completely and just mayhem, chaos, blah, blah, blah. So we need to have, in future, not tonight, our manifesto for motorways and trunk roads in the UK. How do we fix it?
We will. And I think that was a comprehensive recounting of your experience driving at the M1 and the A1. I will say, however, it was a slow way into this week's podcast. So we might need to lift this slightly, save us getting accused of being a bit miserable.
Which I'll do now.
Good. Excellent.
So on Sunday morning,
yes,
I had a lovely drive, which reminded me I will say about my drive on Friday, it was still nice.
No. Do Sunday.
It was still nice to be in the car with my own music, forging my way, just the car as a means of getting about. I used a diesel car, bought it second hand, might have been a Range Rover, we'll just skirt over that. It's a way of saving the planet. Anyway, on Sunday morning, I drove to the Wake Up at Wilton House.
How happy!
I was super happy. A lot of happy people there. It's run by His Grace the Lord Pembroke, Will. Many of you will know him. He's on Wilton sort of supercar and classics. I think his handle is on Instagram. It's a lovely gathering in these beautiful grounds of his home, and you can turn up in anything. The exotic cars go into the private bit of his garden, which everyone can see, and everybody parks somewhere else in this lovely little village. It was a lovely drive. Drove down the M3, down the A303, lovely misty morning. England-Leicestershire looked stunning. It was nice to be in the car. I went in my Alpine. It was everything about getting up early in the morning, enjoying the road, forging your way. It was great. Got there, great meeting. Robert Denton, who we had on here a few months ago, was there. A whole bunch of other people enjoying all kinds of cars from old classic minis to current stuff.
Would you rather go into that or a Goodwood breakfast meet?
Ooh.
I would rather go to that.
There you go.
I would rather go to that. And I have to say, without embarrassing him, Will Pembroke is a lovely, modest, self-effacing chap who, and we bumped into him, he was at the Nürburgring track day we went to. If you didn't know who he was, you would never guess who he is. He's an absolute addict and obsessive like us. Mm-hmm. He's got a really impressive car collection, which he talked me through really, really kindly. And the way he talks about the cars, he's one of us. He loves the nerdiness. He loves the driving.
He's got the problem because a lot of his stuff that I've seen is just as quirky and stupid as mine.
He's got a beautiful Alpina 850 manual CSI thing. He's got a Nissan Skyline 34 where Dirk Scheusman has signed one of the suspension arms under the bonnet. I mean, that's just godlike qualities for people like us who know Dirk Scheusman. Many of you know who he is. So it was a love letter to being in the car, going to an event, enjoying the journey, enjoying the destination, and enjoying the memories on the way home. So I had a lovely, rewarding weekend in cars. The rant we'll come back to with a positive manifesto on another time.
Definitely.
Good. Neil Clifford?
Random, lots of little random things. My Alpha GTA has just come back from Alphaholics. And the lovely chaps there have done a wonderful job of making it perfect. So I had a little drive in that, and you realise, I have an Alpine too, but this is like a 1965 Alpine. It's wonderful, so light, It's obviously a little monster with its 170 brake horsepower engine. It's a 2.7 RS for half the price. It's bloody fantastic. And actually nicer to drive in a way because of that engine at the front, rear drive thing. It's easier for me. So that was good.
Does it make a nice induction noise?
Yeah, very, very, very,
If
very.
only we had a spot in our podcast where we could talk about induction noises.
Yes, well, we can record that too on a later date.
Yeah.
It's got a new titanium Alphaholics exhaust and intake manifold. I sold a Boxster and got a new Boxster.
Yes.
Can you tell us what you went and what arrived?
Yeah, I can. A 3.2S, slightly scabby but beautiful little
986?
Early car, 986.
Yeah.
And it's been swapped for a 987
Nice.
Spider.
Yes. That's an
Guard
interesting
red.
car.
Which is basically the same as a Carrera GT for 150 for 5% of the cost. And
It's got white writing on the side of it.
no, black.
Black.
Black on white?
Black on it's a Guards red car.
So black on red.
Nice.
So
Guards
that,
red car. And the usual sort of buckets and manual. Not ceramics. Ceramics is quite rare there. I think they did do ceramics on the Spider. But I like the fact it's Guards red.
Can I try and guess the thought process? Because I know what Clifford's at. He's clever bugger. So he's thinking, well, all the GT rare Porsches have gone a bit skywards. These 987 Spiders, well, actually, they're rarer than some of the GT cars. Mm-hmm. There's not many of them about that didn't make money. These have got a chance of maybe going skyward. These could go a bit.
Well, I think they can go a bit. And if you get a nice little spec, I think Guards red is cool. There is a silver. There's a few silver ones, isn't there? But that's super rare. Yeah. I've had a black one before, actually. The roof is a bit of a pain in the ass.
But
you know, first world problem. Do you know what I mean? It's fine.
It's a feature.
It's great. Manual buckets. I don't know whether it's got the sat-nav thing, actually. But anyway, it's a great little car, and I haven't driven it yet.
When that car was new, Colin Goodwin, who won't thank me for saying this, but we'll find it funny, was asked to do a story for Christophorus magazine. I think he had to drive one to Le Mans. And they said that the roof will come off at over 125 miles an hour. And the roof came off at 127 miles an hour.
They were right.
Yeah, it's so German. It literally 1.6 miles an hour over the maximum. It deposited its roof on the A1. Brilliant. But as like a crashed hang glider, I think.
Everyone's a winner.
And it's got AC. I am thinking about taking it to Le Mans, actually.
Wow.
I might actually do that. What else have I done? I've with my chums planned for Classic Le Mans, because we're going to that. So we have a little hotel, and we're going to go to that and look around the paddock, and it's going to be really, really hot as always, and it's going to be great. I was going to go to Villa d'Este next week, but it's actually harder to get a ticket than Oasis. So I'm not doing that. I drove a car to my mate's wedding. We all know very tall Luke, got married. Wonderful
Congratulations
wedding.
to him.
Congratulations to Tall on Instagram. And I was his best man.
Bless you.
I was his best man, which the beginning of my speech actually said, everyone says to me, "Oh, that's weird. You're 58 years old and you're the best man at a wedding. Is this his second marriage?" And I say, "No, actually, it's not. It's just a young boy I picked up in a car in the West End." It was very funny.
Friend.
It was
just said that as your son appears in the background with a cup of tea.
Yeah. Thank you, darling. It was
that
funny.
line, the line from Withnail and I, "You are a toilet trader."
Yeah. It was funny at the time. And the last thing I'd like to say is I drove my Bentley Conti GT, and I must say it's the best car under 20 grand that you can buy apart from a Boxster.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we can all say that if you replace the headlamp, it's going to cost you, the car's written off. But you know what? That's just being a miserable bastard.
Yeah, you might not have to.
It's a W12 engine. It's basically a 4-seat Veyron, really. because mine's got the Veyron seats. So I did a lot, and I'm planning to do a lot this week.
Okay.
The Boxster thing is interesting. Sorry to interrupt you. There was a Boxster 25
Yeah.
at Wilton House on Sunday, and I remember when they came out. I saw one in the dealership in Singapore 3 years ago when they all came out, and thinking, God, that's just really desperate and sort of just finding product to put in the showroom. And what I saw this, it was silver
With the gold bits.
Yeah.
with
Gold wheels.
gold wheels and that interior.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It looks stunning. I didn't get to see the owner, but if you were the owner, congratulations, sir or madam. I thought that was mega.
Well, it was based on the first ever Boxster
It
Spider.
was the concept car.
Yeah.
which was silver with red, and actually the first ever 911 I think was silver and red. So there's a theme there.
It was cool.
Yeah.
Manish, I know I don't say this in an arch way, but what have you done in cars this week?
I have had a couple of little adventures, okay?
Wow.
One of which I hope we're all going to celebrate. But we finished the Ferrari film last week with Luca. It's finished.
Wow.
Everything's done. And that
Did
was...
you finish it in a car?
I'm sorry?
Well,
Keep going, Neil.
Sorry, go on. I thought this was about what you did in cars, not what you did.
With cars.
Yeah, but that is a kind of car.
Okay, all right.
The kind
There's
of
some slack here.
Slightly
Some slack,
tangential
Neil.
car thing. It's just, it's been 2 years in the making. Mr. Harris is the superstar in the movie, and I actually saw it fully graded, fully mixed. There are 2 shots missing, amounting
It's
to all
not
of 8
finished then?
seconds. No. They will just be replaced. The film is finished. I'm not even gonna supervise those 2 silly shots coming in because they're 4 seconds each.
So
and
somebody
they'll
else
just
is going to finish it.
Knowing you the way I do, utter bollocks, you will supervise those shots.
Perhaps I might be there, but the film is finished. Nothing remains to be done apart from these. I saw it graded and mixed and in a cinema, and I was blubbing. I was literally blubbing. And it's not, you blub a little bit because it's just such, this silly thing I decided to do for a living is all about marathons. It's just nothing is quick. Everything takes longer than you think. So when you get one made, it's a wonderful feeling, full stop. But when you know you've made something really, really special, we also cut the trailer for it last week. And it's an overwhelming feeling. And I have to say, the best thing about this film, without blowing any sunshine up anybody's orifices here, is this chemistry between Mr. Harris and Mr. Montezemolo, or the Marquis, actually, the Marchese, Luca Cordero di Montezemolo. It's 2 guys. It's basically like this podcast in its slightly quirky way. It's 2 guys chatting, making each other laugh, and really talking about life, the universe, and everything. And I just think you did a scary job, Chris. You just did a scary job. You got one of the great communicators of the world who only ever communicates what he wants to communicate lots of stuff that I don't think he would actually in civvy life. And here's the best thing about it. He's seen it now and he absolutely loves it. So, sorry?
Few.
Well, yes.
When will people be able to see it?
Well, I think that this, hopefully, we will get an autumn release. We are having a very long conversation at the moment with Everyman Cinemas in the UK.
Okay,
and I think we're going to have a lovely limited release. And we should have a little internal chat about a road trip involving Everyman and podcasts. And
So just for the nice ladies and gentlemen listening, Everyman Cinemas are available in all parts of the realm.
Yes.
Yes,
I think there are more than 60, and
wow.
they don't take any old crap. So I don't know why they've taken this, but
That's good.
If we were forced, if we had to go on a little road tour to do a couple of these places, do you think there's a manufacturer of very luxurious cosseting motor vehicles near Crewe that might maybe lend us a vehicle? Do you think?
Maybe lend us 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 and we could have a race.
Yes.
Just going to write that down in my notebook.
They have very lovely nuts in Everyman.
Oh, they do.
They?
And they've got very nice, they have very nice everything in Everyman. And I think the idea is that it would be a limited release, but
what does that mean, Manish, in English?
Well, that means that, it won't be on for 1 week at every man at every hour. But what there may well be are what we're thinking about. We did this with Senna, and we may well do this with every man. Is we'll have a sort of Luca seeing red, because that's the name of the movie Day, and say at 7:00 on a particular day, every single every man will have a screening of it, sort of all 60 plus of them, and you'll be able to see it from Scotland down to Cornwall. Brilliant. At your local everyman at one particular, and we'll let people know. And hopefully that will work out. I think.
Well done.
I just think you've got to see this on a big screen. It looks great on a small screen, but you've got to see this on a big screen. Yeah. Now, my little second actually to do with cars moment is, do you know how complicated it is to reprogram a Ferrari fob that immobilizes the immobilizer?
I imagine it's expensive.
Oh, fucking hell. This is just...
Whoa, someone ring the bell. We don't get many of those from Manish.
I don't swear very much. So replace the battery in the fob, pressed it. The LED was so dim, I locked myself in a dark room just to see if it actually came on. Then I replaced the battery and replaced the battery again to make sure it wasn't the battery. So it turns out that if you don't know the pin, and I have spent a little bit of time with the manual, with all the paperwork, I'm just trying to find the pin. If you don't know the pin, well, first of all, this is how you do it. If you do know the pin, what you do to reprogram a new fob that you have to buy is you turn the ignition on for each time that the pin is set. So if your pin is, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, you do ignition once, you turn it off, you press a pedal, then you do ignition 1, 2, and you do this. You do this 4 times to make it work. But that's if you know the pin. If you don't know the pin, then your car goes to Egham. They take out the whole of that particular bit of immobilizer. They send it to Maranello.
Jesus
they make Christ. A new one and they send it back. This process is about 3 months and is north of £1,000. So fortunately, I have one immobilizer.
Have both your immobilizers gone, or you've only got one?
Only one. Only one.
So one works. One
works. One works.
Okay.
So this is going to be really. I mean, I have read 1 or 2 comments where people have said, "This is my dream car. Thank you for buying it, Manish," and convincing me not to.
Yes.
It did make me chuckle somewhat, but I'm persisting because I'm telling you, these little niggles, when they're done, this is the dream car.
Yeah,
but she remains somewhat elusive.
I absolutely love your positivity, Manish. Absolutely love it. It's inspiring. I saw a 456 today, and
where?
And I'm not going to say because there's some confidentiality here. But I said to the person who was looking after the car, "Can I open the door?" And he went, "Yes." And I thought he doesn't know why I've asked that. So I said, "Did the door droppers work?" He went, "Yeah." So I opened the door, and the door dropper didn't work. So I just thought, "Oh God." So we've reset it and it worked again now. But yes, they're interesting creatures, aren't they? Right, now, I'm going to move on quickly because we've done 26 minutes on the first topic so far. So as things stand, this is a 3.5 hour podcast. So I will. This is my last week. I've just written it down quickly. I drove a Miura P400 SV, Ford RS200, a GT3 Touring. I did 2,400 miles in an M5 Touring. I went to see my M5 Touring, which has been resprayed. I went to see my Integrale, which doesn't look like an Integrale at the moment. And I test drove a Z3M Roadster with a few miles with a view to maybe buying it. So those are the things I did this week. And there's a few other bits and bobs I did as well that I can't talk about. So I have had an absolutely wonderful week with cars. I'm just so lucky that I get to live my passion. 27 years I've been doing this, and I was driving through Europe on my own, and I still get the same thrill. I still love waking up early. I still love the sunshine. I still love the time in the car I'm in. I love the planning, the scheming, the thinking. I love deciding to listen to local radio stations and understand what on earth's going on. I love stopping in Luxembourg and working out whether they sound French or German. I just love all of it. And it was an utter privilege. And I stayed in Nancy overnight. I didn't need to stay in Nancy. I didn't need to stay in Nancy, but I thought I've never stayed in Nancy before. You do that, don't you? I've always go around. I've been to Metz. I've been to.
I know Nancy. If you know Nancy like I know Nancy, you would think twice. Yeah.
Well, I went in, and I say this guardedly, I went into Nancy.
Did you?
And I stayed in a absolutely dreadful Mercure, but I found a little brasserie around the corner that served a fantastic rustic French menu. Do you know what? I need to apologise to France. I've become completely obsessed with Italy of late because of the work that I did with Manish. And I spent a lot more time there than I have in France. But France has a lot to offer.
It does.
The roads are superior to any other country in Europe.
We said that.
There's a lot of space.
Yeah.
And if you look hard, and it doesn't actually, you don't need to be a sleuth. Just look where the French eat themselves, and you'll find great food.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you ate?
So actually, I had a slow cooked single pig's trotter, but I couldn't work out what else. It being cooked obviously very slowly, and I had that as a starter. And I'll tell you why I didn't have. And I had half of that. I had half a minute steak, because the big news is, people,
30-second steak.
Thank you. I'm doing those weight loss drugs, so I'm on Manjaro, because I got too heavy, and I wasn't managing to shed the pounds on my own. So stop press. I've been on it for 3 weeks now. I've lost nearly 1.5 stone.
Wow.
You look
in 3 weeks.
good.
And it's revolutionary. My love for food has reduced slightly, but for all those people that quite rightly have been ripping the shit out of me on YouTube for years, saying I was fat, I was fat. But actually, I was deliberately fat. I was going through a bit of a phase of not giving two fucks about the world. But I've come back to civilization, and actually, I feel great about it. So my pig's trotter came, and she was brilliantly French. She sort of threw it at me.
Yeah,
as it sneered a bit. And I just got it, and I thought, this is delicious, and I felt I can't finish it because I don't have the appetite, but it was delicious. And everything on there, everything had some tripe in it, or a fucking rogue oyster or something.
Yeah,
it was really, really good. So
very French.
I'm apologising to France, but I had a fantastic week, and some other things will emerge from that week that I can't talk about now. But I'm proud of the result, and I think
so. You should be
good fun for all. So, and as for the Z3M Roadster, well. There's a car we should be owning, isn't there? I went out in it. Another thing that when they were new, we all shat on them. We just went, this is rubbish. It's a bit loose, a bit flabby. Well, it's well built. It's got an S50. This is an early one, an S50 straight six, one of the great engines. It's perfectly fast enough. It's actually really nicely refined on the road. It's quite supple. Steers pretty well. What a lovely... These are £15,000.
Yeah.
I'm tired kicking a yellow one at the moment.
Yeah, honestly. I'll just have a...
That's still the one you showed us.
Yeah.
This one, yeah. I think it's a fantastic car.
Yeah. So much value.
The rump of that car now looks so much more delicious.
Drop it 10 mil, space those rears out. Whoa.
The wheels are amazing.
The dish. And when are you going to find a dish on a wheel like that? You're not?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would make any other wheel think twice about dish.
Let's move on, because the next
I'll
one
just watch. I want before you move. I've watched that Mura video 4 times.
Oh, isn't that a car?
It is.
I've always been a teeny bit in love with that car, but that video, and when you explain that you can't put it in second when it's cold, and then when you start to properly accelerate, and then when you point out that actually red, gold, and blue aren't some fantasy, that is how it was delivered. And it is a P400 SV, and it's got the 385, not the 375. And I see the engine just over your right shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that is
right.
It's good work, Mr. H.
There's something called Clip Grabber that you can use on YouTube, okay? It's called Clip Grabber. It's a free bit of software. I urge everyone who likes a good Chris Harris or any other video to get Clip Grabber. You put in the URL and you've got that clip for life. I have that clip for life. It's on my desk.
I think also it's interesting because that's being sold by RM Auctions, I think, in end of May at their Milan sale, and that's
no reserve.
Not meant to be. It's a no reserve car, which I find fascinating. The owner was a really interesting chap. He was really lovely. He was there on the day. What I find fascinating: how do you value a car like that? Because there's 150 of those out there, so it's not 250 GTO rare, but it's incredibly rare.
2
But
million.
I found myself increasingly during the day, I was valuing the driving experience because I really enjoyed driving it. It was a challenge. It sounded fantastic, and it was unlike anything I'd driven for a long, long time. Well, since the last time I drove a Miura, I'm lucky. But what I did find myself thinking was, if you value these as objects and objects that make impact, then it's a very interesting car to value, because if you park that car in that specification at Villa d'Este, I think wherever you park it, it's the most beautiful car in the car park, isn't it? Unless, I mean, when I say objectively beautiful, people can argue, but I think if that's the case, it's more than 3.5 million whatever's, isn't it? Because
it must be,
because it's extraordinary when you're up close to it. I mean, when you're
it'll never be another first.
No. Amazing.
I think this is a podcast conversation in some detail. Valuations of beautiful cars. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. We might have to manage this slightly, but we're going to do next.
Quick on this one.
Yeah. The next one is good. We'll be as quick as possible on this one. So this is. You'll be aware that there has been some papal activity recently down in the big massive in Rome. Some white smoke emerged, and as we all know from a Chris Harris and Friends car podcast perspective, all we care about is the papal wheels. So I want from my learned friends, what is Popemobile 2025? Neil can go first.
I can't think beyond that Defender. What's it called? An Octa thing.
Octa,
not an orca. It's not named after a killer whale. It's got a funny name, but I actually think it's very, very cool. I don't know why, but I think the Popemobile has to be square. It looks like it's designed on an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
And a white one of those, which of course you can't buy because you go onto the website thinking, oh, I'd quite like to buy one of those. And there's only two colours, and those two colours. Those two colours look exactly the same as each other. So whoever's colourblind at Land Rover, could you give us some more colours, please? We might buy some more
any colours.
You know, if you did non-metallic green, I'd have bought one by now. Yeah. But I would buy an Octa Orca thing. You can't get a 2-door, which is a real shame, because I think a 2-door one of them would be even cooler. So you have to buy the 4-door one and then take it somewhere and chop it up and stick a glass box on the back. That for me would be the right car in white.
Fantastic. Chris Cooper.
So is Leo DiCaprio now the Pope? Pope Leo. Did I get that right?
He's American.
Well, that's where I'm going. He's from Chicago.
So
what would a Popemobile the Chicago way be done? What would he be channeling? What would he be channeling? I think he'd be channeling 1930s. Al Capone. Pope Capone. That's what it'd be. There's only one car. It's a 1930 Cadillac V16.
That would be lovely.
Yes.
Cameron found this a bit earlier. He said that's the one.
Yeah.
I think
Except no substitute. 7.4 litre, 185 horsepower. So the bloke that Neil would send his Octa to, I think that bloke would take that. It's quite square. V16. This is Popemobile done the Chicago way.
Yeah, take it to 2010 in the Midlands. They'd do anything for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Manish.
I think you've got this wrong, actually. I think there is only one car. And you have to do the same thing. You do need to chop it. It is the electric Fiat 500 Giorgio Armani. That is a car. I mean, look at that thing.
Is he driving it himself?
I'm sorry?
Is this the first Pope that hasn't got a driver?
Exactly. He stands up. Yeah. It's an electric Fiat 500. Well, I just loved, I had a quick go at speccing it. And what you can do is, apparently, the door sills have an illuminated 500.
Has it got like a little box you can pick, like a Visac pack? It's got the Vatican pack.
Just tick the Vatican edition, the 500.
Oh, that's good.
But what it's got on the door sills, apparently it has 500. And what you would do is, instead of having 500, on one side it would say Leo, on the other side it would say Dio. And it would just be perfect. God and Leo. That is the car. That is the car.
Oh, don't want to get don't want to get in trouble here, boys. So, my view on this is I agree with Neil. It's got to be boxy. I always have it. The Pope sits in a box. He sits in a Perspex box, and therefore the car around him has to look like a box. Now, I gather Pope Leo is acutely aware that he's part of his duties is to help struggling Italian car brands. He knows that because ultimately he's a national symbol. I know he's a global figure, but ultimately he's the putative leader of Italy. To those people who don't live in Italy, he knows that Maserati's in a bind at the moment, and it can't. It's in
I've
a
heard
real.
He says
bind.
that a lot. Yeah,
he does. He sits there and he goes. Let's sod abortion. I'm really worried about the old Trident. They're not. They're spluttering. So, what he's going for. And he's a massive fan of Rocky 3. And he knows that the only Maserati in Rocky 3 is a Quattroporte Mark 3, which is that one there.
Yeah, that's quite a cool car.
Boxy as you like.
Yeah.
So when he goes off to train with Apollo Creed in LA, he gets into one of those to go to the airport with Apollo and waves goodbye to his family. And he's going to have a massive Perspex box built out the back of that. He's going to sit. He's just going to sit on a red velour chair with gold embellishments, and he's just going to wave at people. And he's going to single-handedly kickstart or restart Maserati sales globally. Bada bing.
That'd be great.
I like all of those.
Yes, so do I. Right. Next, there was some quite big news last week, which we didn't actually cover off, which I think, given we had an emergency podcast on this subject, we probably should have done. Jaguar is changing its creative agency. I've got to be careful how I phrase this because it's been reported that it fired its agency, but that is not the truth if you look at it. But it looks like there's going to be a change of agency after the situation with the pink car. So I'm going to ask my learning colleagues to tell me what they think. How do you feel about it, Manish?
So I got onto the X agency website, and apparently they're called Accenture Song. I mean, I just looked at their motto is "We are Song." So
The marriage made in heaven, that one.
Well, I'm just sitting there thinking, I've come up with a radical design. I think, we're going to change direction. And I go and find myself an advertising agency because I'm a car manufacturer. I want to go a little electric. I'm going to use some stone in the car. And I'm going to find an agency called We Are Song. I also found that they have created a new business travel tool called Citric Easy.
Fuck's sake.
So this is all stacking up quite well, isn't it? For the kind of geniuses who hired these people. And then they've also created a 3D configurator for Prada shoes that's apparently very high def. Neil will know all about this. It's a really well done sort of 3D configurator for shoes. So why not hire them? I mean, just why not? And, they've parted ways. And I think I'm just going to rest my case there.
Right. Now, I'm going to jump in here because I think I and many of us have said all sorts of quite slightly unkind things and arch things, and at times I've been immature. But I found this quotation. Sue Benson, founder and CEO of the Behaviours Agency, which is another organisation that doesn't sound like it's quite my cup of tea, but she speaks sense. She lists some of the reasons she felt the new approach failed, and I think these are really good. There are few, if any, cars in the ads, which leaves audiences unsure what the brand even stands for. Heuristics like the leaping cat logo have been discarded, weakening mental shortcuts consumers rely on. Emotion has suffered too. Rather than stirring pride or aspiration, the new identity feels cold and aloof. And in terms of consistency, the shift has been jarring, with little cohesion between legacy and future. This is the bit that I like. This next 6 lines. In short, the brand destroyed more equity than it built. By abandoning recognizable elements that consumers had emotional connections with, Jaguar created a vacuum that its abstract new positioning couldn't fill. That's a really, I think, a grown-up way of saying they made a mess of it without being unkind. I think that's a fair summary.
Yeah. I mean, beautiful analysis. We said it at the time. You are destroying something. What are you going to put in its place? And nobody who's sitting here having a chat with, out of the 4 of us, nobody could quite put their finger on what it was that they were replacing. And what they were replacing their legacy with. I mean, you can go and destroy what you like as long as what you build afterwards is better and acknowledged to be that. I'm not convinced those blue and pink things with that funny JS logo-y thing was anything. I mean, it was awful. And I have no emotional connection.
Neil, what do you think?
Fucking hell. I don't think they fired them. I think they're doing an annual review of their creative agency, right? If you go through your annual review, and we all do that. It's a thing we all do.
It's normal.
It's normal that you're retendering and reconsidering and making sure that you've met all the wonderful people in the world that can help you on your journey. I'd only say a couple of things. We all, particularly me, make many mistakes, and the quickest thing you can do sometimes, this is personal experience, not talking about Jaguar, but is you identify the mistakes you've made and adjust, because that's the only thing you ever regret is not moving fast enough. And your heart always tells you if you've made a mistake strategically. And if you think you don't make many mistakes, you definitely are wrong, because you do. The only thing I would say about, which actually you've just said, Chris, maintain distinctive assets. The Germans are so brilliant at this. 911, 5 Series, E-Class, SL Mercedes, S-Class. The Germans, there's a copybook out there. There's an instruction manual almost about how the journey. You have to constantly evolve. Any sort of revolution is so dangerous strategically, particularly when there's hundreds of thousands of people that love that brand. So I'm sure that's part of the review that they're thinking about. There's a lot of smart people there. There's a lot of, including myself, a lot of people are immensely passionate and adore the brand Jaguar. And we hope whatever happens that it's a success. But look at what Renault have done with that Renault 5. What's the most positive conversation about an electric car? It's reflecting on your amazing brand assets that you've had and making that into a modern electric car. And those things are, I'm sure, going to be quite successful. So we wish Jaguar all the luck in the world, because it's really, really, really an important company, not only for our love of cars, but also for the employees. So, that's it.
Chris.
Neil, can I just ask you one quick thing, though? Because as soon as they launched that, and I think that's all really fair, their CEO doubled down after all of that criticism. And he basically told us all, well, you don't know what you're talking about. That was that was the kind of point of major frustration for me. Because what you're saying is, this was a great brand. It's produced some beautiful things and it's got to move to the future, but it mustn't basically dump its heritage as it does that. And that's exactly what they were doing with that campaign. And when people pointed that out, it was like, well, you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, we didn't quite say that. What we said was, if you have equity in the brand that you think is that one could argue is relevant, you dispose of that at your peril. It's not axiomatic to say dumping heritage is bad. Some parts of heritage is bad, whatever.
I'm just talking about the CEO, because that's exactly what he did. As soon as there was a backlash, it was like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I think his opinion.
I can't speak for other people, but we wish them all luck, right?
We do. So the question was, Jaguar fires its agency, discuss. And when we shared this at the time, I said, well, actually, have they? I'm sort of with Neil, you and Chris here. I think, and I did in the 2 seconds I had before we came on this evening, a bit of a busy day. Now, I couldn't find anything that suggested there was a quotation from Jaguar that we have. And my reaction, my immediate reaction was, this is part of the normal that every large corporate would do, whether you're British Airways or Jaguar or in other parts of the tech industry. From time to time, you would review your agency status, before you get to the end of the contract, because changing agencies, the operational implications of changing an agency are, you can't just flick a switch overnight, and Friday it's one agency and Monday it's a new one. It takes months.
Can I add one thing, though, looking at what I read? That is that this is a change in 2026 and they're looking to come to market with this car in 2026. So it's a bit more than just having a second look at another agency.
Well, let me go on to the next thing I was going to say, because I actually don't think it is. So I couldn't find anything in the public domain which suggests that Jaguar thinks, oh. So I happened to be having dinner a couple of weeks ago with somebody who is currently and intimately, hugely connected and part of, one way or another, the JLR organization. And he said, you do a podcast, don't you, about cars? Because without naming him or even trying to narrow it down, he's clearly involved in the motor supply chain somewhere, and won't say more than that. And he said, you guys had a bit of a go at the Jaguar thing, didn't you? I said, well, what we said was, we don't get it. We think there's a risk that you are destroying equity or abandoning equity, and you've replaced it with something which is less meaningful. We don't get it. We don't understand what the story is. And I said, oh, by the way, haven't they retendered their agency? Yeah, that's just what they're doing. He said, they're not fired them. He said, no, quite the opposite. They love it. And talking about very senior people in JLR, some of whose names we've already mentioned, said they think it's brilliant. They love the fact that they're getting more conversation, more people reacting. We've got more coverage. Jaguar had died. It disappeared. We hadn't made money in the last 20 years. Nobody was talking about it. Nobody was talking about the product. Nobody was talking about the brand. That is their argument. Now,
I hope they're bloody right.
And you have to say, part of their analysis isn't wrong. Jaguar was disappearing. Too many of the, there were too many attempts at, the good to be bad advertising was really interesting, but it had no connection to what went before and very little connection to what went afterwards. It was a brand that was being poorly stewarded. So I don't think they fired their agency because of backlash. So whatever you find on the internet, I think we're all saying the same thing. We remain very positive about one of Britain's most cherished and valuable brands. Yes,
I've bought two of the fucking things in 6 months.
So there you go. And I looked on Friday in fact, I saw one on Sunday at Wilton House. There was one of the run-out F-types, the 450 horsepower, so the light pressure.
It's good.
Green F-type convertible in that quite subtle spec. I thought, if I could have found the owner and said, what do you want for it? I'll take it. So we wish them the very best. It's a tough gig they've got. They haven't, to their credit, they haven't shirked it. They haven't dicked around and said, we'll just fiddle around the edges. They've been bold. We like people who are bold and decisive and act with certainty. We love all that stuff. It's what got Britain.
Sorry.
So let's see. We wish them luck.
Yeah. We're going to move on now to Formula One. And I suggest to my learned friends that is one of the best executed first corner overtakes I have ever seen in all the years I've been watching Formula One. Manish.
Well, I mean, it was certainly better than Senna and Prost in 1989, wasn't it, at Suzuka?
Yes.
He got through it.
It's cleaner.
What did you make? 'Cause we were exchanging texts. When George Russell said, what is he doing? What do you think he meant? Do you think he meant that Piastri basically just got that corner so bad? Sorry?
Yeah, I think honestly, I think what George probably had a little bit more feel in his brake pedal and a little bit more feel in his front axle and felt he could have gone and defended harder than Piastri did. But you never know what the other driver's got, do you? What's in his head? What was Piastri thinking? I mean, it's all of it is awful when you're being hunted by Verstappen. You're just prey, aren't you? Sorry, carry on, Manish.
No, it's just, I remember you said last week, well, who's going to win next week? Well, I think Max is. And I was thinking, and I went, no, there's a combination of slow and fast corners here. And I came up with my kind of McLaren formula, which was just basically wrong. But I am finding Formula One this year, I am finding it beguiling. And I know the engineers are finding it beguiling too. Who would have gone out on medium tires and said, these tires are going to these are super, super, super soft tires. So the medium is actually a very soft tire. And I thought that they were going to cook at 10 or 12 or at most 15 laps. And they came back. Lap sort of 27, Verstappen's putting in these incredible laps. And then when they went on to hards, I mean, the guy pulled away. He pulled away from both McLarens. So I made a quick list here. I wrote, 1, I do love a real racetrack with gravel one that throws you into the barriers if you get it wrong, obey track limits. So I really like that. I really love the fact that you can't just kind of go off and then have a quick argument with the stewards about, do I give my place back? If you go out, you go out. The Red Bull is very fast, and I think in Max's hands. And all I would say is, well, the usual stuff you hear on a Friday, we're nowhere. I have a feeling that car, they bought a couple of upgrades, didn't they, this time around?
Yeah.
They had a new floor at the last Grand Prix. This time they've mucked around with the brakes, and they've also mucked around with the intakes on the side pods. And I think that car is beautifully balanced. And what's really kind of concerning if you're at McLaren is it managed its tyres beautifully. It didn't cook the tyres in the heat. So my third point was exactly that. I think Ferrari were a little bit flattered by Mercedes, because I think Mercedes, what happened? As Ted Kravitz pointed out, Ola Kalinius was at the race. He's there. He's the great big boss of Mercedes. He's hoping they're going to do terribly well. And it looks like George said it. He said, we're rubbish on hot circuits, and we still are. And that's the bottom line. I mean, nobody expects him to do that badly. Ferrari, I said, flattered by Mercedes. I think the safety car timing was obviously incredibly good for Lewis, incredibly bad for Charles. I don't think I've seen Charles Leclerc so frustrated in my life. It's his 7th season at Ferrari, and he is not going to be world champion this year, is he? And that's it. That's just a fact. Okay, they can turn it around. He is not going to be world champion this year.
Not this
He's
year.
like, what is he, 85 points behind or something? And that's just not going to happen.
Whatever.
So it's his 7th season at Ferrari. I mean, what's he going to do? Go into his 8th, hoping the 2026 Ferrari is going to...
Here's one for you, Manish. How many drivers have done a longer stint at Ferrari than that?
I'm just trying to think. Gerhardt did...
No, not that many.
Michael.
Yeah, only Michael. I can think Michael and maybe Massa. Maybe Felipe did slightly more as a support driver. Can't think of it off the top of my head. Yeah, I think actually only Michael.
Michael did 10 years.
Yeah. Arrived in 96, left in 2006. Actually, it was 11 seasons.
No, 2005. Oh, sorry, 2006.
2006.
11 seasons. Yeah,
2006.
yeah.
He did 11 seasons.
That's right,
So I wrote that down. I wrote, these tyres make no sense at all. Did you see Max's kind of pseudo lap? It was purple, yellow, yellow. So he cooked his tyres in the first sector, but he still was second on the grid. I mean, I just don't understand tyres that melt like that. He really, you want tyres where the drivers can push, and that's all tyre management. And my last little point was Williams are flying. I did think Charles, through his frustration, was a bit over the limit. I do think he shoved Albon into the kitty litter. I think he should have left him room. You may have other opinions on that. But my God, it's amazing seeing this team doing quite so well. And I'm a huge Alex Albon fan. I love him. I love Carlos Sainz. So it's just wonderful to see Williams doing so well. That's it. It's my Grand Prix.
Neil, did you watch it?
Yes.
Excellent.
What does beguiling mean?
It's kind of mystifying it.
But in a really nice way.
In a beautiful way, yeah.
No, it's a nice word. I thought I'm going to remember that word. It was all about that overtake, wasn't it? Bloody incredible, really. And I did watch it. And Max is just a legend, isn't he? I was pleased to see Lewis fourth. It's good for Ferrari at Imola, I suppose. I know they're scratching around. Probably that Ferrari bloke's going to get fired, isn't he? Well, it's tricky, isn't it? If it's tricky. If you, I don't study
if it was football,
enough,
if it was football, how long would he last?
Ruben Amorim.
He's lasted a long time.
He's too long. Let's not go there. Let's wait till Wednesday. Look, Max is a legend. I watched it. I got a bit bored. Should I have not got bored? Was it really exciting?
No, wait. Well, I'll say something in a moment. No,
Say it now because I've run out.
No, okay. So I was bored, and I'm bored by Formula One. I'll tell you why. Because it's Formula Pirelli. It's Formula Pirelli, and the engineers aren't beguiled; they're mystified. I don't think they find it interesting at all. I think they find it fucking frustrating. And a couple of commentators actually said, well, what Pirelli want to happen is they want to see, more variation. What the fuck's it got to do with Pirelli?
I agree with that.
They're a supplier of tyres. I know they're really important. So it's a strong view. And I thought the race was actually synthetic because of the tyres and when the pace car, the safety cars came out. On the first corner, so I'm being contrary tonight. It's been one of those days.
No, I really love it.
On the first corner, I don't think that was the overtake of all time or anything near it. Oscar fluffed it. George was right. He bottled out the braking, and you could see him thinking that's why he was so fed up with himself afterwards. He fucked it at the first corner. Excuse me. I hate swearing on this, but that kind of day. So I think Neil's right. Max is a legend, but Oscar handed that on a plate. He just braked too early. He said afterwards, I braked too early. I was really surprised he did.
I think he thought he got brake tested by him, didn't he?
Well, I think Oscar was probably watching George, who got an amazing start, good run in the toe, inside. Don't want to let that one go. I mean, we've all done it. Maybe not those of us at that level, but we all know what it's like. So I'm not sure it would have changed the result because the Red Bull was faster and Max is on it. The only other thing I'd add to it is poor old Tsunoda. Had a shocker of a weekend. I put money on would Isaac Hadjar be in that Red Bull before the end of the season. If he carries on the way he's going right now. I was really surprised. Oscar, I'll come back to that before I finish on this. Oscar, I thought he's a little sort of quiet assassin, but we saw a chink in that on Sunday, and I thought, I bet he's really kicking himself. He didn't just put one on Max at that first corner.
Yeah, did Lando
really
second, didn't he? Lando.
Yeah, he did well. He did better, and suddenly the dynamic in McLaren is a bit more.
Good.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Post that safety car, Lando was handed it because he could change tyres and Piastri couldn't, so it was a bit unfair. I couldn't. I love disagreeing with Mr. C. I thought it was a great race. I've got a short attention span at the moment. I'm tired.
Yep.
And I watched the whole thing. I thought it was. Yeah, I mean, we don't know what's going on inside the cabin, but when you're accelerating to 200 kilometers per hour in 5.04 seconds, as Piastri did, I think that day, you're cracking on a bit. And he might have braked a bit too early, but I maintain it's a staggering move to put cars that size down the inside. I mean, the middle of a chicane and come away with it. Win.
He's quite good. I'll give you that. Yeah.
And I think he was. I think it was remarkable. But it
was inch perfect, Chris. It was inch. Perfect.
I disagree with Manish. I don't think the Red Bull is anything like as quick as the McLaren. I think the McLaren is a faster racing car, but I think Max, like these buggers, when you've got this God-given talent, you seem to get luckier and luckier, don't you? So what happened was Max got this lovely buffer when McLaren pitted Piastri early before going through the graining. So McLaren ballsed up Piastri's race. I think he could have won it actually. But I think the combination of his head being a bit fried after that first corner and the early pit stop meant that Max could run off into the distance. He got his buffer, and then from there on, he could just manage it. But I have to say, he's the measure of a Formula One driver and his pomp is when they outperform their car, isn't it?
Yes.
And if the car was as good as the McLaren, wouldn't Tsunoda not be in such a pickle with it? Because I don't think Yuki's any mug. I think he's a very talented racing driver.
Did you hear this friend that somebody told me last week, or he reminded me last week that Alex Albon had said about Max's driving style, it's like getting your mouse and turning the sensitivity up to maximum. And if you do that with Max, he just moves it a little bit. Most people just can't control the mouse. And that is the fundamental difference. He can control this car. It's so jittery, so oversteery. A guy just look at the number of people who can't get close to him. And there is something odd about the car and the way that it works and the way that it's dialed in because no one can get close to him. It'd be lovely to put Alonso in the car.
He's better than Senna.
Yeah, I think he's better than Senna, yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, my only response to... I've got 3 words to respond to your challenge to my challenge. British touring cars. If anybody watched British touring cars from Brands Hatch the previous weekend, it's just mega racing. To watch on TV right now, I'd watch British touring cars any day over
Yeah, but
Formula
if
One.
if you want to just raw overtaking, that's always been the case with tin tops. They
No,
deliver
it's not.
far
It's better than
more.
that. It's better than that. And there's a lot going on.
When's Formula One ever delivered the level or quantity of overtaking that tin tops has? It never has.
No, but there's just more going on, and it's just more enjoyable right now. Honestly, I love the promise of Formula One and the anticipation, but the product right now, Formula Pirelli, doesn't deliver it.
Interesting for me, because I think the opposite. I find it interesting that the thing I don't want is to go into a race where everyone's decided it's going to be 1 or 2 stops, and we know that this compound's better than that compound. This one had it where we thought it was 1 stop, then it became 2 stops. That's a big difference. And then there was this idea that the hard tyre was going to be shite and the medium was going to be a problem. And actually, their roles reversed during the race. I thought it was really interesting.
All these opinions are valid.
Yeah,
I wish they sounded better. I wish they'd just take. Can't they just take the exhaust off? They sound like shit.
Yeah, they go to Miltech.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, have you ever been to that camera shot where you see them coming into they come over the start finish line, and it isn't really a straight. You sort of come onto it on a right, then you blend left to come into the chicane. The camera angle there is about as unrealistic or unrepresentative as the Eau Rouge shot. When you first go to Eau Rouge, you go, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, I can't see anything.
I never realised it looked like this. That Imola shot into the chicane. If you saw 2,000 horsepower modern Formula One cars side by side going into that, you'd go, "What are they thinking?" There's no room there at all. It's like a go-kart track.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it, and also I think I had a fear that Ferrari had turned up their engines for the race to get some sort of a result. But I think if they had done that, I'm not sure Lewis could have been quite so genuinely euphoric at the end. Am I wrong? Am I being naive or not?
I think you're right. I think they got that right. The race was right.
He was lucky.
Yeah.
And he was happy he had a better result. And good for him. I would
Hard
be.
tyres, two good safety cars, of course. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, Max just he must have just been thinking, I'm buying a lottery ticket this evening. Everything's dropping into place.
It did.
Yeah.
And also, did you hear Alonso's radio message? I must be the most fucking unlucky Formula One driver in history. Was his message. Okay, so we're going to go quickly now because I think we need to move this on. I'm asking these clever people to change a car law, specifically to the UK, sadly. We can't do American and other ones. So, Neil, what law would you change?
Am I not allowed to mention horses or cyclists?
I'd stay away from those subjects if I was you.
I have.
Good.
So,
only for tonight, though.
I'm doing the elephant in the room. Can we just not match the French speed limit? Can we speed up the country a little bit? We've obviously got those. I know I drove down to Kent and did 250 miles a weekend. Testing system, 50 miles per hour on the M25. Honestly,
that's part of my manifesto.
What a load of bollocks, can I just say, for like 40 miles.
Yeah.
And, there was nothing going on. There was no roadworks. There was not. So, okay, that's not quite the law. 80 miles per hour is not going to kill more people. And I think the French way, which there's 70 if it's raining, basically. So whatever, 130 kilometers and 110 kilometers. If the weather is terrible, slow down like you would if you were like sensible. But nudge it from 70 up to 80. I think that could put half a point on GDP. I'm not going to mention horses or cyclists. I mean, petrol there should be a law about petrol pricing. There should be some sort of like cap on taking the piss, I think. Because
on motorways in particular.
I think, I'm sounding a bit of a communist. And, I'm not. I'm a capitalist, but, come on. And by the way, I've got a slow puncher in my BMW 5 Series, and actually it takes 3 months if you pump it up to 50. And actually the Alpina wheels take about 46 anyway, PSI or whatever the bloody thing is. So I pump it up to 50. It takes 3 months to get a warning. And I got that warning on the way home, and it's still at 28 or something. I went into that shite service station on the M1, and I put my petrol in, 97, not 99, cost a bloody fortune. Swallow it, tough shit. There's nothing you can do. Dirty bogs. We can talk about that another time. £1.50 for air. £1.50 for 20 seconds of air. That should be against the law.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it? And I'm like,
Oh.
bollocks to you. I'm going to drive home with a flat tyre and I'm going to pump it up at home.
I'm going to give that £1.50 to charity.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's my little rant. I'm sounding a little bit Chris Cooper-like.
Good.
But good. Good.
Mr. Cooper, come on. Give us your best shot.
The boys told me to avoid bikes and horses.
Good. That's why they're cleverer than you.
Exactly why. Yeah. But we all agreed on phones. Right. It's a careful one. So, we shouldn't be using phones in our hand while we're driving around. That's obviously daft.
Welcome to the Car Podcast with Chris Cooper and friends.
You shouldn't be using
the name for this segment.
You shouldn't be using phones when you're driving. It's obviously common sense. I have a philosophical and fundamental rantathon at any response of society where there is already perfectly good law to deal with a problem. There were perfectly good laws to deal with driving without due care and attention or dangerous driving. We didn't need another law. It was like the Dangerous Dogs Act of the 1990s, Michael Howard. We had perfectly good law. We didn't need another law, particularly a bad one. Cycling Mikey, who many of you on the social media will know, has made a career out of filming people, because now there's a law about using hands. If you hold your phone in your hand, there's now a specific law where the tariff is simply it's 6 points on your license. There's no variation. And he's catching people who are using their phone in their hand when they're stationary in traffic. That's the only way you can catch them. Now, you probably shouldn't be doing that from a common sense point of view. You definitely shouldn't do it now because of the law. It's plain bonkers because most cars now have fewer and fewer buttons, and the interface is more distracting probably than just looking at your phone now and again. Not that you should be really doing that. So the law on phones has gone mad. It's unhelpful. It's not actually improving anything. But more importantly, it has broken the trust and the confidence between the public and the state. I've said it before, the British are essentially reasonable. If we treat the public with common sense and reason, 99.9% of people will behave sensibly. For those that don't, there are already laws that deal with them. Everyone gets that. By introducing these laws, it reduces a sense of understanding of responsibility and what the right behavior is. And it causes friction and uncertainty and frustration as to actually where the real problems are and so forth. Those are all negative effects on societies. If we simplify this and made it much clearer, not only would it probably increase GDP by the same 0.5% that Neil's after, which I'm after as well, I think it would create a greater sense of reasonableness and fairness in how our society works relating to the motor vehicle. That's my manifesto.
Yeah.
I second it, although I'm slightly scared. Right. Manish.
I don't know if this is law, but I think smart motorways. I think the concept of smart motorways, especially getting rid of, the hard shoulder, is a terrible idea. And I've got a really simple quote from This Is Money, and it is this: exclusive research conducted for This Is Money earlier this year by road safety charity IAM Road Smart found that 13% of the nation's 1,916 miles of motorway network has no hard shoulder at any time. 13%. So it's 1 in 6. The statistics appear alarming, with the government-owned National Highways publishing a report in December 2023 that showed smart motorways without a hard shoulder were 3 times more dangerous to break down on than those with an emergency lane. The rate of killed and serious injury, KSI incidents, during breakdowns on smart motorways with no permanent hard shoulder has increased by 10%. KSI tragedies increased for 3 out of 5 schemes since having their hard shoulder removed. Chris Cooper has just talked about the fact that you are fucked in a traffic jam if you just look at your phone, put it in your left hand and swipe it with your right hand. And at the same time, we're killing people with smart motorways.
Yeah.
Just someone explain. And, by the way, my previous incarnation, professionally, I saw a lot of road traffic accidents, and they are not pretty. Even the smallest ones are not pretty. The big ones are absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
You have to explain to someone why a head injury is not going to be survivable. You have to explain to someone why they may not walk again, or why they'll walk with a limp, or why they'll need 10 operations. I mean, I remember as a house officer at UCH, this guy got hit very, very hard. He was driving, and he was in a car. He got hit very hard in the slow lane, in the hard shoulder, by a truck. And I remember we basically had to operate on his bum because it got torn in half, literally, every 4 days to repack it, pack it, repack it. I'll never forget that as long as I live. And, why the government would legislate to close a piece of real safety, I do not understand.
I think that's right. I think they've sort of reversed it. They know it's wrong, don't they?
The AA, Edmund King of the AA in particular, campaigned on this, which is why they're now the sort of the compromise has been they're putting many more of these refuge areas in. I suspect somebody from my profession, God hate them, management consultants, looked at the data and said, how many incidents are there? Oh, we don't need a hard shoulder. We just put one. The data says we need one place every mile or whatever. None of which paid any attention to human behavior, which was when you have a problem, you haven't looked at the signs. You don't know where the next refuge is. You stop where you are, or you stop in the inside of the motorway. It was bound to go wrong.
Or you've got a 456 Ferrari.
Yeah.
On the B3177.
Luckily, on the A30, there was a refuge.
It's all coming back.
I drive past that sign a lot now, and a bit like Chris and I used to do with when they used to have tanks on the signs in Germany. I with Lynn going past it, I pointed it like we used to do with the tank signs in Germany.
Refuges for inoperable 456s. So that's very grown up and very poignant. It's certainly not light-hearted.
No.
Mine is probably more light-hearted, but actually it gets my goat. I think if you can give someone for sitting in particularly stationary traffic and touching their telephone 6 points, then you can give someone that sits in the middle lane unnecessarily 6 points as well.
Good call.
I suppose it's about equivalence, isn't it? And there's a great sense that ultimately there's no equivalence. The motorist is always going to be at the end of the long arm of the law, and it's going to be more harshly judged. And at what point do you think it's unfair? I don't know. I know that we're in command of a dangerous, heavy object. I don't like Chris. I don't want extra friction. Fundamentally, the roads they could be worse. They're not great at the moment. Actually, one thing I will say about my week this week is I went out this morning very early, and I got stopped by 4 separate sets of roadworks, as in they were repairing road surfaces. Certainly between here and where I live in Bristol, we're here in Birmingham, a lot of A roads are being resurfaced quite quickly as well. So maybe there's a splurge going on and we're all going to benefit from it, which would be lovely. Before we do our 2-car garage, it's the second episode of our K&N Intake Noise Challenge.
Oh,
and if you listened to last week, you might remember that most of us were utterly woeful at it. So let's hope that we're better this week, because it was frankly embarrassing. So here we go. Finley, our epic producer, will now start the competition.
Yes.
So difficult.
I've got that.
Okay, I think that's an S14 E30 M3 rally car or a DTM car.
I was going Evo Sport M3 E30, yeah.
Go on. So he's gone for that. Chris?
I think that is, I guessed this all of last week. That is why induction noise is so mega compared to just exhaust noise. That is induction noise at its best. And it sounds like an S14 BMW engine in a 4-banger in a M3 rally car. That is what K&N is for.
I was going to guess that was a DTM Audi. It sounded like a full pot Audi going, or was it?
It was the S14 engine.
Lost. We got one right.
I did say be easy this week.
Yeah, okay.
Next one.
No, that wasn't easy because that sounded like a
I
straight
think that was
six
easy.
beginning. Yeah, go on.
That is mega.
The third gear on that. Did you hear that third gear? It just went on.
Well, it also went on for about 4 years. How long's the gearing on it?
It might be on a dyno.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris can go first.
I think that is some sort of Ford BDA, BDG type thing on a dyno.
Manish?
He's going to say Ford. I'm going to say it's some kind of weird Ford VTEC V8 on a dyno. You can have a dyno. That's
not
third
V8.
gear. It wasn't?
Neil?
McLaren GT3 race car.
No, gear change is too slow. It's a very slow gear change. But it sounds like a 4-cylinder engine to me.
Ooh.
So I'd say, I'm confused. Is it an A series? Is it a Mini?
Ooh.
What is it?
It's actually, Manish, you're accidentally on something with the VTEC. It's the Honda S2000.
Bloody hell. We all need to buy one of those.
We do.
As Neil points out, they're always 60 grand now.
Yeah.
It'll be 70 next week.
Yeah,
Here we go.
Nutley Motors. Yes.
Yeah. Right, so I'll start with this one.
You'll get this.
You can't do me here. I'm going to say it's a BDA, but if you tell me I should be able to say it's an aluminium block and it's a BDG. I think that's a BDA, but I might be wrong. Or could it be a Sunbeam? Shit, no. Or could it be an Opel Manta? Look, I'm saying it's a BDA. Go on, Chris.
I think it's a Ford. It could be a Millington, but I think it's definitely a Ford BDA type, belt drive A type thing. Yeah, and an Escort rally car.
It did sound like a rally car. RS2000 rally car.
Go on.
Oh, I love that. I'll go with Neil. I think it's an RS2000 rally car. I like that. I know what that is.
What was it?
It was an Escort, but a Millington.
Yes!
That is a BDA.
You get half a point. I get more than half a point.
You do. You get more. You get a quarter more than me, but it's still a BDA, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Oh, that was just 3 for this week, I'm afraid.
Okay,
fantastic.
so I
Well, do you know what?
I get 2 points. Who won that one, Finley?
I get half for the VTEC.
If it's going to make you less of Mr. Grumpy Poo Pants after this, then you win.
Yes.
Give him a fucking trophy.
You
I'll make
win.
a cup of tea later.
I'll build another shelf in my trophy
That
room.
was a
You
terrible
do that.
joke,
You
which
do
we'll
that.
explain another time. So this two-car, can we do this two-car
I've got your
garage?
trophy. Here's your trophy.
There you go. Now, here we go. The discount code is this. CHOC 15 or CHOC 15 if you feel comfortable saying that phrase, which I do. CHOC 15. Go and see what's available for your car because there's some tackle on there that you don't expect. For example, if you own a V8 bi-turbo C63, they do a kit for that. It's not just all old Fords and Oxfords. They do. There's a lot of modern stuff as well. So go and have a look because it makes them sound magnificent. And you don't piss off your neighbours. Intake noise is the future.
It's definitely the future. It's the
Okay.
present and the future.
Here we go. We're going to do this two-car garage because I've got to be available for Christmas for my children. Here we go. Two-car garage suggestion. Brackets, slightly modifying a suggestion from a fan. This is written by Manish. You are the number one driver in the Aston Martin team. You have to buy 2 cars, one for yourself and a different one for any of your teammates, past or present, that reflect your affection for that teammate. The cars have to be relevant to the team that you were driving for together at the time. I.e., if you pick a teammate from 2007, the car for you and he have to be relevant to the team you were driving for then. No budget, choose emotionally. At this point, we all read this and went, Has Manish had a minor moment here? Because I'm not quite sure what he's on about. I now get it, but he's had to explain it. Manish, explain it.
Because what I'm saying is that you're Fernando Alonso. You've been in many teams. And
Why
you've
couldn't
had
you just say
many...
Fernando Alonso?
I don't know. I was having a mini moment. So you're Fernando Alonso. You've been in many teams and you've been in Formula One since 2000. And you've had many teammates, and some you've liked and some you've disliked. All I'm saying is go back in time as Fernando Alonso and buy yourself 2 cars, one for yourself, one for your teammate, but it has to be relevant to the team that you were driving for at the time. That's all.
Okay. Well, you can go first, Manish.
Okay, well, I'm going to go to Fernando Alonso in 2007, and he joined McLaren, and his teammate is a young boy called Lewis Hamilton, and they don't get on. At the Hungarian Grand Prix, it all blows up when Lewis rather cheekily probably doesn't let Fernando by to qualify, and Fernando gets him back in front of the cameras by not letting Lewis into the pits properly. They were driving for a team called McLaren Mercedes. And it all went horribly wrong, and Fernando left at the end of that season. I don't think there was any love lost between them. And I think what he does is he buys Lewis Hamilton in 1997 a Mercedes A-Class 1.4 litre in this green, which I think is just pretty horrible. It's kind of like a teal green. Now, I think the real twist with this car, I don't know if you remember, but this was the car that had 80 horsepower and it failed the Moose test.
Yep.
The elk test, the moose test. So basically, this car, if you tried to slalom it between cones, it flipped. And this is what I think Fernando is going to buy Lewis. And I think for himself, and I think this is just about relevant, as you know, he all left McLaren that season. He was in a bit of a huff with McLaren. Their biggest competitors at the time were Ferrari. And I think he buys himself a Ferrari 599 GTB Fiorano. And I think he does a few hot dogs and wheelies at the McLaren Technology Centre, leaves Ron Dennis a cold croissant, off he goes. That is Fernando's 2-car garage.
Chris Cooper.
So I'm also going for 2007. And I'm also going to reflect, because this question is actually about who Fernando likes and doesn't like. But it's also about Fernando thinking he's the unluckiest driver in the history of everything.
Yeah.
So the car he's going to buy from himself is this year's McLaren F1 car, because I have a shot at the championship, which he hasn't had in 10 years. The car he's going to buy for Lewis is a deck chair.
Very good. Very, very good. That amazing meme that we all love. Go and look. We'll put one up for you now. Sitting in the deck chair in Interlagos.
Yeah.
As the cars come past. Magnificent. Well done. Neil.
I really struggled with the complexity of this 2-car garage. I couldn't really follow it. So I'm going now. Why not? And Alonso's a very different character. Normally, he wants to kill his teammate, doesn't he? But I think Mr. Stroll, Dad Stroll, has charmed him brilliantly and promised him the world for the next 20 years. And you can be an ambassador, and you just look after my son and teach him everything. And don't be an horrible bastard. Be nice. And he's like, actually, this is great, because actually, I'm probably going to earn more money being nice than being horrible. This is going to work out. Because I've driven for every other team and things have gone wrong for me, so I'm going to change my strategy and my personality. I'm going to be decent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to celebrate my love of Mr. King Stroll, Dad, and also son, and I'm going to buy them out of my own money. And we must recognise that Aston Martin probably have the best cars they've ever made. Bit expensive. You'd like them to be 25% less to compete with their competitors. But nevertheless, if you're rich, Aston Martins are brilliant. Probably haven't been better since like 1987 or whatever. We go back and love Aston Martin. So you'd buy son stroke dad. You know, you two both have this. This is a gift from me. A beautiful bespoke DB12 Volante in an ice blue with caramel leather, with all the options, beautiful thing. And then you'd say, and you know what, Stroll family, I love Aston Martin so much, I'm going to buy myself the new Vanquish. and I'm going to buy it in the same colour, and we can all use the cars because I love being at Aston Martin. This is just a fabulous place. And they say, "Oh my God, he's changed. Everyone said he was a bastard, but actually he's amazing, that guy." And
maybe he wants to drive in 2 years' time.
And he will keep his job forever. And that's the smart thing to do now if you're him.
It's easy to forget how long Alonso's been around. I interviewed him at Silverstone in 2004 when he was driving for Renault. I think it was 4. And he tried to do donuts in my long-term Clio V6, which had an open diff and didn't work. So all he did was wreck my inside tyre. And it was a fascinating interview. I realised just how lonely the life of a prodigy was. And he's still going now. You forget that. 2004, that wasn't his first season either. He's been around yonks. So I'm going to 2015. One of his annus horribili, because he's had a few, hasn't he? He's at McLaren.
Jensen?
And he's with Jensen. Now, there's a quirk of that relationship. I never really understood the Alonso Button relationship. It's one we've sort of forgotten because they weren't really given machinery to go hammer and tongs, were they?
No.
But Alonso has always been very kind, or at the time was very kind and came out with, "Oh, he's my toughest teammate." I'm not sure he was, but I think, Jensen always surprised people in the same machinery, didn't he? Let's not forget who he outpointed, some quite important names like Lewis for one.
Yeah.
I just love the fact that, and I've just said this before, in every interview, Fernando would never call him Jensen; he'd call him Jensen. He always called him Jensen. And I love it when he called him Jensen. So he's buying him 2 Jensens. He's buying a Jensen Healy, and he's buying him a Jensen Interceptor. and he's going to have the J's taken off them, so they're going to be called YENS Jensens. Rather than Jensen's, and he's going to hand them over with a big grin on his face, and they're going to have a big old hug and remember the glory days of 2015 when they couldn't fucking get off the back of the grid.
That's brilliant.
I like all of those.
Yeah,
I'd love a Jensen Interceptor.
Oh, I know. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's one to avoid.
Yeah.
So let's move on to a bit of music before we leave this marathon podcast. I'm going to start first. It was good weather this morning. It's been some cracking days to get up and get out in the car before this, but today was middling, but wasn't bad. And I think there are certain anthems that signify your personal foray into summertime. There's a couple of songs that I always hold back from, partly because of the names of the songs, and they don't feel appropriate in winter or spring. And Don Henley's Boys of Summer is a summer anthem. And today felt like the first day that I could really sort of stick it on. So I did.
Lovely.
I love it. Chris Cooper.
So in my 35 hours in the car on Friday evening driving to Leeds and back, I listened to every song ever published, nearly. And a bit similarly, on the way back down, because it's quite late, Evanescence, they're a bit poodle rocky, sort of 1990s, 2000s. Bring Me to Life was booming and got me going through one of the diversions off the F1.
She's got some lungs, hasn't she?
She definitely has. Bring Me to Life. She could have definitely done that.
Yeah. Okay. Manish.
This was what I was planning to listen to when the fob didn't work, but it will work because I'm going out for a very early drive tomorrow. And it is going to be the Pretenders' Back on the Chain Gang.
Oh,
and I think that's such a beautiful song. And in a car, there's a great line. I found a picture of you. Those were the happiest days of my life. I think they're beautiful lyrics.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you reckon Fernando's got a picture of Lewis?
Right on the dashboard.
Yeah. With a dart through his head. Right, Neil.
My first car was in 1983, cassette player, Ford Escort Mark 1. And one of the tapes of 4 or 5 tapes I had was Dare, Human League. And I always like the first song of an album. And that first song is The Things That Dreams Are Made Of. And you know what? I love that album. And they were the best times of my life, probably.
Yeah, albums were great.
With a K&N air filter. That was the one upgrade I did on that car.
God, you must have been rich. We used to have Marvel tin lids, and
it was probably nicked. But the thing, the things that dreams are made of, the Human League, it's lovely.
Well, there you go. Everyone's got a Human League story, and everyone's got a K&N story. Maybe we can find some
that's true. That's
synergy
true.
there going forward. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think we've been forthright. I think we've been jocular. I think we've been heartfelt. And I have to say, I'm glad it's over. So from me, from Chris Cooper, from Manish and from Neil, who all want to get back to their lives, thank you very much for spending the time to record this evening. And we will bore you all next week.